Natalie said, will you come and talk about your career? Because you started quite a long time ago at Theatre Centre. And I thought, my God, it's Theatre Centre's 60th birthday. That's incredible. They're really doing well. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm actually 5 years older than Theatre Centre. So, I'm here as your first visual aid that you can write for young people at any age, and it's great. I watched that film of those young people yesterday, and I thought, I'm actually incredibly daunted by that, and why am I? And I think it's because they were very diverse. And I thought, okay, why am I daunted? And what they want from theatre and what they think theatre is extremely wide, extremely interesting, frightening, demanding. And I thought, actually, I think that you can tell me this at the end of what I'm talking about, is that I don't think writers write for age groups, or my contention is they shouldn't write for age groups, because I think age is all in sort of layers. So I don't believe that you experience things sort of horizontally. I think writers write vertically. And I was looking at those young people, and I was thinking, you should see a play by Roy Williams, or you should see a play by Lisa Evans, or you should see a play by Abby Morgan, or you should see a play by, any one of the wonderful writers who actually write for all age groups. But I think they write for them because of excitement, not age. So my first contention is that I write for young people because I have only one piece of advice to offer about writing, which is, if you're offered work or if you think you're going to write a play, if your heart lifts, say yes. If your heart sinks, say no. And that's all I've learned in my 65 years on this earth. However, what I'm going to do is talk about the things I've particularly learned or tried to learn from various times when I actually have written for young people, specifically. What time do you call this, Amanda Dalton? Sorry. My talk today is about what I think, three things that I think I've learnt but keep re-examining in my career. And when I thought I'm actually being asked to talk about my career, I thought I'll look at what career means. And the first two descriptions are career, a profession affording opportunities of advancement. The second is a person's course or progress through life. Now, we all know that we have no career. We're always, doing the next thing. I defy anybody to say they had a plan and they followed it. And these are the alternative definition, which I think describes my life as a playwright. It says, alternative definitions are a race course, the space within the barrier of a tournament. This is my favorite. To take a short gallop at full speed. To charge, encounter. This is my next favorite. To turn this way and that in running, as of a horse. And this one, which is, I think, what we attain to, a swift running course as of the sun or star through the heavens. Writing is scary, exciting, wonderful, tedious. You can be big-minded or small-minded. You're always thinking, I'm cross at that person's career, or she's doing awfully well, or you're a bit smug at the person behind thinking, he's not doing as well as me. So you know as playwrights that you're miserable worms, and you're writing in order to make people think, gosh, she's actually quite good. I'm going to talk about 3 experiences in my long and careering career. The first is Theatre Centre, because they're my hosts. Theatre Centre, when I was at Theatre Centre, it was in Knowle Road, which was in Islington, and the company was in the top of a school, and it was opposite a pub called the Island Queen. And these are the things I remember about it, is that it was on Knowle Road, which is, of course, where Joe Orton was murdered. So there was a sense of scintillating danger that playwrights could actually die on that road, which helped this sort of excitement. The Island Queen, there's no point telling this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. In the Island Queen, there used to be, in the ladies' toilets, there used to be a board which said, please write your graffiti here. And there was a lot of graffiti in, and the only piece of graffiti I remember was it said, somebody said, this graffiti is boring. And then underneath, in another handwriting, it said, if you think this graffiti is boring, go in the bar and listen to Tony Webb. Never found Tony Webb. The place where Theatre Centre was based was at the top of a primary school, so you were always very much aware of, you could try out things on younger people and find out if they were tedious or if they ended too soon or they were too long. And the experience I'm talking about, I made 4 plays there. And all of them had the same requirements, the same rules, which were 4 actors, minimal set, no lighting, and they happened in the morning and the evening. And that is the first thing I learned at Theatre Centre, which was how much I like the fact that rules, if you have limitations, I think limitations release art, they release theatre. So always trying to work out the game of writing a play which has like 4 pieces and this particular board. I think I use that all the time. I think, okay, what's my board? Is it a big board or is it a little board? What can I do? That's the first thing I learned at Theatre Centre about writing. It encouraged me to always make up my own internal rules to tease out any art or any wonder that I was grasping for. The second thing that I at Theatre Centre was, I don't know how it happened. I think it was something to do with David Johnson being in charge of it, but we somehow got 3 weeks of entirely unstructured time with the actors from both companies. There was a mixed company and a women's company. And so we had 8 actors, 2 writers, directors, 2 designers. And for 3 weeks, we played. We absolutely played in the way that you see kids doing, like, you know, in a hospital, pretending hospitals or shops. And some of the things we did, like one morning, we spent the entire morning being ourselves at 9. And I made a terrific bow and arrow. And it absolutely connected with when I was 9, And I remember that my life was actually, I think I had a life at home, but it wasn't important. I lived in the field down Wheelwright Girls' Grammar School Drive. We had another exercise where we spent a day, we swapped genders. And so the men all, oddly, decided to wear dresses and sit around smiling and being quiet. And the women, we all had a great time bullying them and kissing them, actually. But, you know, each time we spent another day being in a piece of work. It was Ridley Walker by Russell Hoban, and we just kind of lived in somebody else's work for a day, which is wonderful for adaptation. And the best of all was that we set up an impossible one where half of us were human beings and half of us were aliens. And we were going to meet. So the aliens went off, and they were told that what they had to do was they had to come back looking as little like humans as possible. And the people playing humans had to prepare the space to welcome the aliens. What could go wrong? This is what went wrong. Is that the humans all did lovely things, like they had little candles, they had nice cushions ready for the aliens. Meanwhile, the aliens, of which I was one, was in the other room trying to look as inhuman as possible, which meant that we all disguised ourselves very quickly. So I actually was an enormous tea bag. You know, I was in a very big square thing. Bill Mitchell, who now runs Wildworks, was all wrapped up in black plastic. And the person running the workshop opened the doors on the aliens. And of course, we came in, we couldn't see anything. And we blundered through, you know, right over the lovely cushions, the little snacks that the humans had. And the humans had the most tiring afternoon they've ever had, trying to communicate with us. It was heaven. My main point about that was that ever since then, there was something about just playing, which helps any work you do. And trying to relocate that playing, I'm sure I think it's hugely useful for working with a young audience, but I find it hugely helpful because actually what we write is play, and it's about enjoyment and having a good time while learning something. That's what I learnt at Theatre Centre. I moved on. I think they may have been tired of me, but by this time, I wanted to try some new rules. I realized that I started realizing that stories happen at different times of the day. And I felt like I was writing daytime stories, and I was getting... I'm just greedy. You know, all writers are greedy. I wanted to write nighttime stories. And this happened that I was offered a commission by the late, great Claire Venables, and she said, okay, go away and write the play of your dreams. And I can't tell you how frightening that was, because I suddenly thought, but I need constraints, you know, I need someone to say, you've got this many actors, this is the subject matter, and just in a typical Claire Venables, you know, she really said, go away and suffer. And I tried to think, had a really hard time writing it. And it turned out that the play of my dreams that I wanted to write by then I'd been teaching writing, and I would say, in a smug way, you don't want to start with a long monologue. More Light, which is the play I wrote, starts with an 8-page monologue, because the play of your dreams isn't obedient to you. It was a hugely angry piece. It was set in a tomb, and it was about the ladies of the tomb who had borne no sons, and they were going into Death's dark kingdom with an almighty emperor. And what happens in there is that they find their power. The emperor dies, so they cut him up and cook him rather well in a sauté, or and it was a sort of wonderful experience because it had far too many people to be produced. It had a subject matter that, if you took it to a production company, they said, I don't think so, I don't think that's going to sell. And it coincided with the company it was for closed. So it was hanging around. And this is my second bit of my second epiphany I'm talking about, is that Susie Graham Adriani, who started the connection scheme at the National, said, can I use More Light for this scheme, which is we do multiple versions of plays for young people to perform. And I said, because I never learn anything, I said, that won't work because it's not a play for young people. It's about this, and this happens, and there's a castration, and there's cannibalism. But she insisted, and I did it. And I learnt this huge thing, which is that young audiences, like everybody else, like serious, deep, hard stuff. And I had the glory of seeing loads and loads of wonderful versions, one of which Kevin Dyer worked on, all over the country. And I just thought, in future, I am never going to think I'm writing for a young audience, because if you look at those kids there, they've got different energies, they've got different brains. It's ludicrous trying to tailor stuff, I think. That's my second epiphany. My third, and I'm apologising to Polka and Unicorn, I had a lovely time, but today isn't all about meat. I'm not going to bang on about it. My third thing that I've learnt, which I want to pass on to you today, is I started working for a company called Frantic Assembly. And I was going to turn them down because I hadn't heard of them, because I was ill-informed. But I've since, every time I talk to most young actors who are like 24, 25, they say, I came into theatre because of Frantic Assembly. And I worked with them, and I started 2 weeks workshop with them, and we kept making stuff, but they would do something wonderfully physically with 2 actors and 2 performers, two dancers, and then I'd try and write it. And what I found is I was replicating it. So I just stopped writing and I watched various physical stories emerging. And I discovered that this is, one of the chief ways which I want to pass on to you of finding the stories in you is try and work physically. And I knew I'd been for ages. I'd been thinking, actually, everything I'm writing, I'm only using like this much of people's physical ability. And Frantic Assembly, working for them, meant that I discovered, rediscovered perhaps, the space. I discovered that, like, don't do anything twice, that actually space and physical theatre and text fight it out for the centre spot. And at the moment, I'm still enthralled to discovering how to do that. But I would encourage you to just think about it. And I know you're going to do stuff today which you play about. That's almost where I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop at where I am at the moment, because I'm writing the new Frantic Assembly thing, which, is it for adults or is it for younger people? I don't care. I'm one draft into 101 Dalmatians for Chichester. Is it for people or is it for dogs? And what I do when I'm writing, which I'm sure you do, or you can tell me your particular things, is I looked at what I got written. I tear things out of newspapers that help me, and are like my friends, like my writing friends. And do you know who said this? It says, I grew up a small, shy child with two older brothers who were bigger and meaner. I found solace in comic books. This idea of helplessness is appalling to me, so I would write characters who could do things because I was not one of them. That's Joss Whedon, who did Buffy, which I'm kind of reaching out to the kind of wonderful stuff that's happening in TV and film of writers who write supposedly for young people. I don't know who said this, but art has many territories. Choosing any way of working is like going into a room, but knowing the door to the other room is still open. And this is the last one. Art is always political. Artists by profession have a duty to challenge the society they live in and question mainstream assumptions. By doing so, artists always embrace danger, become vulnerable. All art has its own message. Even the most ridiculous work is still expressing a state of mind. Well, artists should always be aware of the boundaries they can destroy, and that's Ai Weiwei. I think hard times are coming. All you can do is write. So I'm just saying, today, play to the end of your game. Remember that limitation releases art. Make up your own fantastic rules to release yourself. And the last one is fly to the end of your wings capacity, like Claire Venables told me to. It's scary and it's frightening and it's you'll never be rich, but you'll have the most wonderful life, as I have for 5 years longer than Theatre Centre. Thank you.